existence. It's really quite strange. The universe, it's so vast, there's so many things to ponder. This here, it's just a fraction, just a glimpse of what's really out there. You zoom in on one galaxy, one of countless others, and we see one solar system. And in this one small little solar system, there's a rather tiny place called Earth. There's many creatures inhabiting it, creatures divided by differences, yet united by similarities. Of these creatures, one is the human. Humans all have much in common, but there's many differences. Of the differences, one is gender. Some humans are male, others are female. And while it's really that simple, it's actually quite complicated. Some people will say the only difference is an X or a Y chromosome, and depending on which one you have, you're a guy or a girl. Some people are going to say it all depends on what sort of equipment you're packing down below. In describing these differences, they always refer to the opposite sex, but this is rather misleading and ignores the numerous similarities. It's a bit more accurate to say the other sex. And in this vein, I would like to explore with you how we come to identify as man or woman, how our sense of gender develops, and some of the related issues. In understanding why we are the way we are today, it helps to consider what we were like way back in the day with Caveman Bob and Caveman Jane. The struggle for survival. Our species didn't get to skyscrapers and airplanes overnight. Evolutionary psychology focuses on the roles that men and women adopted in ancient times and how that explains modern behavior, modern gender roles, particularly in terms of sexual selection, since we need to procreate, to continue the species. Now, perhaps that's an unconscious drive that we have. Men played more of a hunter role, and in order to ensure their genes were passed on through the generations, it was seen as more beneficial for them to schmooze around, spread their seed, whereas women, having to be more involved in childbearing, being that they bear the child within them, were more involved in having a stable, reliable mate and making sure that their child, their offspring, had best chances of survival. So in evolutionary psychology, we consider how these pressures over generations are going to shape and mold just the behavior that we see from men and women. And it makes a lot of sense when you consider it, yet it's not the whole picture. So while this is useful for a foundation, it's really just one thread in a larger spider web of interwoven and interconnected issues. Since chromosomes are the first place where we see an actual difference in men and women, let's start there. In examining chromosomal differences between men and women, it's interesting to note that all humans begin developing in the womb with female genitalia. This puts it by most people's definition that at the start we're all the same. The Y chromosome has a gene that initiates male development sometime into the process by triggering the release of androgens, the hormones associated with masculinity, such as testosterone. Perhaps you were unaware, but nature doesn't always stick to the plan. Some humans do not develop into a man or woman as commonly understood. Some humans develop with undifferentiated genitalias, both sets of parts, or absent penises. Some even develop with extra chromosomes. This does not make them less human, less male, less female. It simply challenges us to reconsider how we define these terms. What this means is that gender is much more complex than having an X or a Y chromosome, or a weenie or a vajayjay. In fact, we see women who were exposed to more androgens in the womb show more interest in male typical activities and roles throughout their life. This suggests biology is one very influential thread in the spider web of who we are, due to how it influences our behavior and our lifestyle. Delving deeper into the biology of what gives a human their sense of being male or female, we move past chromosomes and begin to consider other factors. It's possible that differences in emotional expression and behavior are due to some sort of biological influence. Again, this is merely a possibility, considering that humans all have the same stuff inside them. We all have the same vital organs, we all have brains, and brains all have the same regions. In looking at these differences, we begin to encounter some of the stereotypes between men and women. Men are seen as more aggressive and task-oriented. If it doesn't have a function, men are not interested. Whereas women are seen as more passive and relationship-oriented. In terms of aggression, we do see that it is more likely for a man to show physical aggression. Women still show physical aggression. We also see that women are more likely, when they are aggressive, to be verbally aggressive. It's not that only men are aggressive, because in fact there's a type of aggression that we see primarily from women, and that is relationship aggressive, sort of manipulating other people to create hostile social environments. Or in other words, turning people against each other. Another emotional stereotype that we see is anxiety is associated more with women and girls than it is with boys and men. It's true to a certain extent that we will see young girls show anxiety more than young boys, but this doesn't mean young boys are immune. It just means that one gender shows it a bit more than the other. We both still experience it. What comes here when we're looking at emotional differences is not that certain feelings are guy feelings and certain feelings are girl feelings. Feelings are feelings. Emotions are emotions. Humans experience the full spectrum. Some emotions are seen as more male typical, others as more female typical. Nonetheless, we all feel them. The main difference comes in how they're expressed, and this gets into some of the socialization. There could be possible influences from social factors that make these more one way or the other. Some of the differences that we see in cognitive skills are girls and women are better at language skills overall, a bit better with verbal skills, reading and writing, whereas men are a bit better at space-oriented skills, such as mental rotations and spatial perception. And these are just a couple of examples, but nonetheless, we don't really see any difference in general level of intelligence. It's not like one group of humans goes to Jupiter to get more stupider. In fact, intelligence is more of a matter of the individual. I hope that that's one of the things that's being conveyed through this explanation of how the spiderweb of factors ties together to give us our internal sense of gender identity, is that it's more of a matter of individuality, and also beginning to recognize that stereotypes are stereotypes, and whether or not a person abides by them really has no impact on whether they're male, female, or simply human. But to better understand how this identity of boy or girl develops, it helps to have some insight into how we think. Now, the brain is infinitely complex and is not only shaped by our genes and biology, but also by life experience. Meaning some of the differences and similarities we've discussed so far could also be the result of other threads of the spider web, like socialization and life events. When we interpret situations and decide who we are and how we should act, there are three factors that influence these conclusions and our thought processes. These factors interact in different ways. These factors are our behavior, what we do, our perception, how we're thinking about what's going on, and the external environment, what the world around us is telling us or suggesting back to us as feedback as a result of our behavior or perceptions. Additionally, there are mental constructs called schema. Think of them as our brain's filing cabinets. Schemas help us group related thoughts, attitudes, and beliefs into an organized process. They have a strong effect on the perceptions we have because all thoughts will be filtered through the related schema. Additionally, humans, young children in particular, have a tendency to see things as either black or white. It's one or the other. This happens to be a cognitive distortion, but it's a common mental behavior nonetheless.